All right, let's talk about something that's become, a classic part of modern dating and, really, modern life. Ghosting. It's that sudden, confusing silence that just leaves you staring at your phone, thinking, what on earth just happened?
I mean, who hasn't been there, right? You're chatting with someone, things seem to be going great, maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few weeks, and then poof, nothing. Radio silence. You've been ghosted.
Okay, so what are we actually talking about here? Let's just get the official definition on the table. Ghosting is when someone ends a relationship by just cutting off all contact. No text, no call, no explanation. They just vanish into thin air. And this isn't some rare thing. I mean, look at this number, 72%. Some studies are reporting that nearly 3/4 of people say they've been on the receiving end of this. That's huge. It just goes to show you how baked into our culture this has become.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk a bit more about the vanishing act itself. Then we're going to dig into why people ghost and the real psychology of why it hurts so much. And then we'll get practical and talk about how not to do it and, just as important, how to cope when it happens to you.
All right, so why do people do it? Why do they just disappear? Well, the truth is, it's not always because they're a terrible person. The reasons are actually pretty complex, usually a mix of fear, digital burnout, and sometimes it's even about self-protection.
Okay, this chart breaks it down really nicely into 3 big buckets. First up, you've got psychological avoidance. This is just the classic fear of having that awkward, uncomfortable, it's not you, it's me conversation. Then there's what's called technological overload, or Tinder fatigue. The sheer number of matches and messages can just be overwhelming. And finally, and this is a big one, it can be a protective strategy, a way to get out of a situation that feels weird, unsafe, or even harassing. And this quote from a dating coach is so important to hear, especially when you're just in that early talking stage on an app, right, before you've even met. Sometimes a conversation just fizzles out. With so many messages flying around, it's not always a deliberate, malicious act. It can just be a side effect of how these apps work.
And this is fascinating, right? The experience of ghosting can be totally different depending on your gender. Research from Slovenia found that for a lot of women, ghosting is seen as a safety tool, a quick way to shut down uncomfortable vibes or just manage a flooded inbox. But for many men, it's felt as this really confusing, out-of-the-blue rejection. It can feel like a microaggression that chips away at your self-esteem, leaving you totally in the dark. So it doesn't really matter why the ghoster did it, whether for safety or just pure avoidance. The person on the other end still feels it. And it hurts. A lot. So let's talk about the psychology behind why it stings so much.
Okay, this is absolutely wild. Get this, social rejection, it literally triggers the same pathways in your brain as physical pain. So when you feel like you've been punched in the gut after being ghosted, that's not just a metaphor. Your brain is processing that emotional pain in a very similar way. It genuinely hurts. So basically, ghosting is like a triple whammy to our fundamental human needs. First, it messes with our need for social connection. It feels like being kicked out of the tribe. Second, it robs us of our sense of agency, making us feel completely powerless. And third, it hits our feeling of competence, making us doubt ourselves and wonder, what did I do wrong?
But you know what the worst part is? The absolute biggest blow? It's the not knowing. It's the total lack of closure. Your brain is left spinning, trying to fill in the blanks, and it almost always fills them with self-blame. That open loop is what makes ghosting so uniquely painful.
Okay, so we've talked about why it happens and why it hurts. So how can we be better? Let's get practical. Here's a little playbook for how to disconnect kindly, because it is possible.
And look, the good news is this isn't rocket science. It's actually pretty simple. First, just get it in your head that ghosting isn't kind. It causes real harm. Second, plan ahead. Have a couple of go-to polite messages ready. Third, keep it short and sweet. You don't owe them a novel. A simple, hey, it was nice getting to know you, but I don't think we're a match is perfectly fine. And finally, just have a little empathy. That one tiny message gives them the closure they need to move on.
All right, but what if you're the one who's been ghosted? How do you heal and move forward? Let's go through a game plan for that too, because you deserve to protect your peace.
Okay, so here's what you do. Number 1, and this is the most important one, do not take it personally.
Their silence is about their inability to communicate, not your value. Second, let yourself feel your feelings. It's okay to be mad or sad or confused. Don't bottle it up. Third, pour into yourself with self-care. Do things that make you feel good and remind you of how awesome you are. And finally, my personal favorite, reframe it. You didn't get rejected, you dodged a bullet. You just found out this person doesn't have the skills for a healthy relationship.
So if you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this. Ghosting is a spotlight on the ghoster's issues, not a verdict on you. It says everything about their communication skills and absolutely nothing about your worth as a person. And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? In this world where we can swipe and connect endlessly, we also have these incredibly easy ways to just disappear. So the challenge for all of us is to be a little more intentional, to choose empathy over ease, and to just remember there's a real human being on the other side of that screen. How we disconnect says just as much about us as how we connect.